Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Well, good morning, Thriving Farmers. This is a solo cast today. I just had a couple things that I wanted to chat about. It's been some chatter in our groups, and it's been some great discussion. So today I want to talk about labor. I know there's a lot of folks right now who are struggling with finishing out the season, and right now it's September, so we just got through Angry August, as we affectionately call it. And the reason for that is kind of like, that's when there's so many of those summer crops coming in. You're starting to lose your labor because some of them may be going back to school if you're using high school kids or school kids at all. And the fall crops are getting planted. So there's those big kind of, all those three things hitting at once, and it can make for some long days and some tired crews. So we obviously try to do a lot of things to mitigate that. We may talk about that a little bit later in the episode, but that is something that we definitely see in the industry, and we like to talk about and make sure people understand that, hey, August can be tough, but September gets a lot easier. The weather cools down, and there's not as much to do on the farm. So, one of the things I think the first talk about is some people say, well, I want to farm by myself. I don't want to see anybody. I just want to create this thing for myself. But I would highly recommend that having a team, having a community around your farm is so, so important. And so I guess the first thing we chat about is why labor? Why would you need people? What's the advantages there? And the first thing is, let's say you were to get sick. I know, my mentor, Paul and Sandy Arnold, Paul at one point broke his leg middle of the season. And so he was out for 6 weeks, and all he could do was ride around a golf cart with his broken leg in a cast and tell people what to do on the farm. He couldn't, actually get out into the field. So having that team, having that community around them was so important for them to be able to get through those 6 weeks. And sometimes you just need a break. So, if you are super busy on the farm and you're working 7 days a week, which we highly recommend being able to tame that back to 6. And for our sanity this year, that has been something that we have done. Is Sunday is pretty much a no work day. So we work Monday through Saturday, and then end of Saturday at 5 o'clock when our farm bus shuts down, we clean up, and then by 6 o'clock we're done for the weekend. And so that means then we hang out with the kids, go out and grab a bite to eat, something like that. And then Sundays just hang around the house with the kids and don't do too much, other than obviously greenhouse things. So we do some greenhouse stuff, water, that sort of thing. So that's kind of how our week runs and kind of how we do it. But I would love to be able to have an employee come in on Sundays and do that, so I don't have to think about the farm on Sundays. Because you really do need that break, that mental break from all the different things going on. All right, so we talked about, why would you build a labor force? One is if you get sick, you need a break. That's always that good right there. And the other thing is that you can only do so many dollars per hour. So let's start talking economics of a farm here. So let's say you're picking green beans. I love to pick on green beans because green beans aren't typically super profitable. But let's say you're out there picking green beans and you can pick 12 pounds an hour. You're selling them at $4 a pound. So that's $48 an hour, which actually isn't that much money when you think about it, because there's so many hours on the farm that aren't spent doing the harvesting. So you're having to seed them, you're having to fertilize them, you're having to weed them, you're having to buy the seed, you have to pay the taxes on the land. And so if you're only the person out there and you're only being able to get $48 an hour, then you're not going to be able to make that much profit. Now, where the profit starts to kick in is when you start adding team members. So let's say you have 3 people out there picking beans, getting $48 an hour, and your profit on that crop is, let's say you're making $20 an hour off that. So then that's $60 an hour you've made off those beans instead of just $20. So that's why you really need to think about that. And the other thing too, I would say, is certain people can be better at different things on the farm. So my background, my expertise is the building out of the farm infrastructure, the build the farm. Now we have Courtney, who's our farm manager, and she more runs the farm. So she's in charge of the harvest, she's in charge of the seeding, she's in charge of making sure that the schedules and that sort of thing run well. So that's kind of where she kind of focuses, is that aspect of things. And so having people in their places on the farm is great. Another thing is certain people are better at things than others. So one of our team members is fabulous at picking beans. And so she's frequently the one we do send out there to do that task, just because she's much faster than both of our other team members at this. And so we just say, you know what, every Wednesday morning or every Saturday morning, you're out and you just pick beans for a bit until we get what we need for the week. So that's kind of where we are with that. And so again, one person can only generate so much income. So either you have to be very, very picky about what crops you grow. Let's say like microgreens, you can harvest thousands of dollars of microgreens in just a couple hours. And so if you're a one person show, that may be the crop for you. So being able to do that is probably something to think about, is you have to be very picky on the crops that you grow. So the other thing is, for us is I love to build teams. I love to build community. I love to build a force of nature. And so being able to have a team that you can rely on, someplace to talk to when you're out there working, because it can get real lonely if you're out there by yourself, doing work, seeding or weeding or harvesting, and there's long hours. And so when you have a team, you can divide and conquer, get things done quicker, work together on things. So the bean picking or the weeding is not that arduous several hour task. It turns into, when you have 3 or 4 people out there, just 20 or 30 minutes. And so that aspect of things, being able to condense that, can be much less mentally challenging. So creating that community around the farm, and we even bring in volunteers too. We have some volunteers, and having them do that is great as well. It's just being able to work with those people, learn about their lives, and enjoy being with people. So there is right now a major challenge in the workplace. I don't know if you guys have seen it, and I know some of you say, hey, we're turning away people. Well, that's awesome. But right now, hiring is very challenging. There's a lot of reasons why or why not. In our groups, there's been some great threads going on. So one of the things would be that in the last 18 to 24 months, the pandemic and the amount of money the government is throwing around, and they're throwing a lot of money around, not just to people, but to businesses and to different things. And so obviously, if people have a lot of money in their pocket, they're not motivated as much to go out and get a job. And a couple other things too would be that because these people have had time off, or just a general workforce, a lot of them, they've had time to go look at other jobs or find something that they more enjoy doing. So that's also another aspect, is a lot of people have kind of, created their own businesses, started their own businesses, or done that sort of thing. Another thing would be is the challenges with childcare. And like I know right now, another thing would be the challenges with the quarantines and stuff like that. So right now our school had a COVID case. And so literally, I think they actually took 2 days off. So this Thursday and Friday, the school closed, which means that all these parents now have kids at home that they have to manage and that sort of thing. So that's going to also cause disruptions in the workforce. So we're living in a very, very different age right now than we did, 18 months ago, 24 months ago. Kind of signs of the times is our local Wendy's. And again, I was in a Facebook group and saw this. I was kind of blown away. Closes at 5 p.m. on a Sunday. They just don't have the workers to work the shifts any longer. And they're actually paying pretty well. They're hiring 14 and 15-year-olds right now. They're so desperate. Tractor Supply is hiring people, and they're offering $20 an hour with benefits, which is, that's a decent wage right there. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at. We're seeing literally everybody hiring. I know like Walmart is giving you I forget if it's Walmart that's giving you after 6 months or 90 days a $1,000 iPhone. Some places are now moving to pay for college. We're seeing ads all over the place, like in my news feeds. Literally almost 2 out of every 3 ads are for people looking to hire. Now, let's talk about what this relates to in relation to the marketplace, because especially farming has been historically a lower paying job. People really enjoy it. It's good, hard work. You're out in nature, but it is typically a lower paying job. So when we were in New York, when we were farming there, we were paying low teens on average. We did have some people in the high teens, even some 1 or 2 people making over $20 an hour on the team. So there was, that was kind of it when we were there. Here, we're paying significantly more. Our average wage is in the higher teens, and are paying some people over $20 an hour. Management, that's kind of what we're looking at with the different benefits they get. So, that's the wage has significantly risen. Now, with that too, let's talk a little bit about if you can't get labor. Okay, so we're going to talk about a little bit. We're going to dive into how we hire, who we hire, and at the end we'll kind of talk a little bit about H2A, what that is, and kind of if that might be an option for you. But let's talk a little bit about, okay, we can't get people. Actually, one of my friends, Noah Jackson, he's out in the West. They are having major issues and have had major issues all season. So they are down 130 hours a week, which is basically 3 people full-time on the farm that they cannot fill for their farm jobs. And they have, a very different model. They actually supply housing, I believe. So there's some really cool things they're doing out there, but they have been down all season, cannot hire. It's been very challenging. It's just been a big problem across a lot of different farms. So what can you do if you do run into problems like this? Let's start with talking about the big picture. Okay. So the big picture is, who is your farm built for? How have you set it up? What are different roles that need to happen? And what roles do you have? So, kind of do evaluation of, okay, what do we have? What things are really important on the farm? So obviously, the important things, and again, don't want to be short-sighted here. The important things are first, obviously, marketing. If you can't sell the product, then you're going to go out of business. Obviously, seeding is super important. Weeding is important because if you don't have a clean crop, you're just going to cause problems for next year. And you won't be able to find the crop. Although weeding, I feel like sometimes can get pushed to the bottom of the list because it's not immensely necessary immediately. So okay, if you do fill your weed seed bank, you're going to be seeding for 7 years, but that's next year. But I don't want you to think that that's just a possibility, but that sometimes when push comes to shove, that's what happens. But let's kind of talk about what kind of the things that you can start to push. Well, what I would first do is do a analysis on all your crops. Okay, so what's making the money and what isn't. So for us, beans, not a huge money maker for us. So while we talked earlier about we grow them, we really push people to do a lot of U-pick on them. And so people come by and they're like, I want beans, and we have, okay, so this is the price, and they're in the barn or in the bus, and they're this much per pound. And some people go, wow, that's a lot of money. And it's like, yep, it costs a ton of money for us to harvest these. Our harvest costs are very high on this. And if you want to come U-pick, this is our price, which is a very attractive price. And we say, you can come out anytime, blah, 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 blah. This is how it works. And we have plenty of beans out there. So that's one thing I would think about is what can you switch to U-pick? A bunch of crops that are great for U-pick would be things like peas, beans, flowers, cherry tomatoes. Let's see what else. Things that don't do well with U-pick would be regular tomatoes. I don't like to do that, especially if you're in greenhouses because of the amount of work that you've put into those and the cost. But if you do field tomatoes, just basket weave, that's a great thing to U-pick. Let's see what else. Basil, you can tell people how to do herbs. That's relatively easy to do that. even potatoes. If you do large amounts of potatoes, you can dig a few rows and have a potato picking party. So that's something to think about too. All right. So evaluating those crops is going to be key. Another thing I would recommend is what can you put down? What kind of fabric or plastic can you put down to eliminate weeding? So like all our brassicas this fall are on plastic. We put down white plastic, and we'll be cultivating between the rows instead of doing it on bare ground and having more weeds to deal with. We also, on the edges of our tunnels and inside our tunnels, are mostly fabric as well. And again, this is something we typically do, but this is something I want to remind you that is very, very effective to do that as well. Another thing is thinking about what enterprises can you cut out. So, some of the things like edible flowers, we've kind of just like let that go to back burner. Some of these other crops that we were going to do that just don't sell as much, we are just cutting down, streamlining, standardizing. So instead of 4 different types of beans, so like you can grow purple beans, yellow beans, we just have stuck to a big fat green bean. That's super easy to harvest. So we haven't really gone for the flavor. We are going for flavor, but we're not going for the quality of the bean, like the really thin French beans. We're just picking we're doing Provider. Again, I wouldn't say it's a bad quality bean, but it's not that refined jade because we're just trying to go for speed of picking. Same thing like cucumbers. Instead of growing 3 or 4 types, we're just growing the standards, the stuff that's easy to grow, the stuff that's really going to produce, because it's a lot easier for the crew to get in and out and pick that fast than have to worry about, is this the exact right size, or some of these higher labor cucumbers or other crops. Like one of the crops that you might, some people do would be husk cherries. That didn't get the cut this year. We did do some tomatillos, and we're actually selling quite well on those through when we sell our salsa. But husk cherries is something that didn't make the cut. So some of these things just kind of get abandoned, and we are just telling people, hey, here's what, if you want to self-harvest, it's out there. Here's the price. Here's how to do it. Go get started. So that's kind of something to think about. I think, evaluate first your crops, see what you can drop, see what you pick, and really just put down these fabrics or find ways to eliminate the weeding as much as possible. So if you can do that, that's going to save you loads of time. So those are the top 3 things I would recommend, and to kind of, if you are struggling with getting the labor you need to kind of streamline your farm. And we're back with another tip from our friends over at Harvest Hosts. Molly, talk to us about how to build a great host profile.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So we really try to do our best with onboarding our host locations, spending the time on really talking you through what a host profile looks like when it comes to a successful profile. And let me give you kind of a rundown of what that looks like. You're able to include your hours of operation. So if you want to only be open at certain times during the week for our members, if you're kind of going off of your general hours of operation, if they change at all, you're able to update that. Make sure it's consistent with kind of what your business model is during the week. If you need to block out dates or remove dates because of special events, you're able to control that as well. But I think a lot of the most successful profiles really highlight the imagery and photos from your location. You can also include member photos. So if you've had members that have come through and have absolutely loved your location, they've taken really fun selfies with an alpaca, or if they're in your farmland picking produce, or if they're doing a beautiful tasting at a winery, really highlighting those experiences, I think, is really important on your profile page, so that members who are looking for a place to stay really are drawn and seeing really the great feedback that our members have provided. And then just a couple other things, making sure your description is really laid out, that they understand where they're supposed to park, what they can expect. If you want them to come in for the tastings, or if there's certain products you want to sell, if your general store is open certain hours, just making sure you're very transparent with the potential member coming through. And then obviously providing your contact information in case they have any questions or concerns.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you offer like goat yoga, or they can come in and watch the milkings. If you have a dairy farm, that's also great stuff to either upsell them to or just tell them about.
Oh gosh, absolutely. Those unique experiences are everything to our Harvest Host model. I mean, our members love the fact that they get to meet the farmers and pick the eggs from, the chickens, and
Yeah.
really get welcomed into some people's meals or, community initiatives. And so it's really a beautiful model if our hosts are willing to open up their arms and bringing in our members.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about hiring, because obviously if you have a really good system out there for hiring, you can get good people. It's just a matter of finding those right people and convincing them that you're a great place to work. And I'm going to say we are getting applications. We probably get 4 to 5 applications a week on the farm, but we're not getting the exact type of applications we're looking for. Obviously, we're not in a massive agricultural, especially small-scale vegetable agricultural area, so there's not a lot of people with that skill set moving around. So we have to typically hire and then retrain people, which is not ideal. So obviously, if we can, we're going to try to find people that have some prior farm experience. And if not farm experience, we like restaurant experience, because they typically have experience, working in hot kitchens and long hours and challenging work environments. So that's definitely something we're always looking at. And actually, 3 of the people that we have working for us now do have prior kitchen experience. So we are getting applications. We just aren't getting quite what we're looking for. And so we're having to weed through that. So let's talk about who we hire. So the kinds of people we're looking for on our farm. So first, we're looking for farmers. Okay. So these are the people that actually go out and do the work, seed the crops, hoe the crops, trellis the tomatoes, that sort of thing. And typically they're somewhat pre-trained. We may have to kind of slightly tweak what they do and how they do it, but that's kind of what we're looking for. The second is wash pack, and that doesn't have to be a farmer, although it can be. Typically these people are maybe moms or someone recently retired. I had someone say the other day, do you have any jobs out of the heat, out of the sun? And I was like, well, we're kind of a little desperate right now, so we probably could fit that in to our schedule, but we're not looking for people like that. We want people that do have the tenacity to go out and be able to work in any condition, and we don't just want to have somebody that says, I'm just going to be in the wash and pack, I'm not going to be in the sun, because we want the whole team to be able to work together and do any job, cross-train. So that's the kind of other thing, though, is we'll hire people. Again, I'm not saying that we're hiring people just for the wash and pack, but you also can hire for those positions. And some of these people, they want to come in at 6 a.m., work for 4 hours, and we line up the different things for them to do. And they can do seating or they can do different things, and then they're done their shift. And one of the things that has been super, super important for us as we've been building this team here is having a very flexible work schedule. So obviously our farm manager works normal hours, 7 to 4 every day. And then our other helpers, they're on different schedules. Like most of them work 7 to 2. Some of them have different days off. Some of them get off at noon because they have kid responsibilities, childcare responsibilities. So that's kind of how we're building that up. And then the third category we hire, and this is something which, again, I feel like necessary a lot for some of our farms we work with, but it's not ideal. And if I could hire enough farmers, we probably wouldn't have this part of our business. But that's just like the high school and college kids who are just working seasonally. So all of our high school and college kids are gone back for the season, not working with us anymore. But we did have 2 or 3 over the summer, and they would do harvesting, weeding, and even seeding in the greenhouse, that sort of thing. So having those have been key to get some of these other jobs done. And typically we're hiring them at a lower hourly wage. But if I could get my pick and can I just hire farmers, I totally would to be able to get everything done. All right, let's walk through a hiring process, because that is something that I feel like we've done pretty well. And so once people get onto the farm, we're super, super happy with them typically. So we have an extensive hiring process, and we're very clear about what we're hiring for. And that frequently works out quite well. So the first part, if you're going to come work for a job here, is you're probably going to see a Facebook or a Craigslist advertisement, and that may be in the general listing. It also could be on our page, and we're also posting with local people as well. So it's word of mouth as well. So people just show up and say, hey, I heard about you're asking for a job, and we're saying, okay, this is how you go apply. So Facebook has this feature which you can use for applying for jobs, and the feature doesn't work quite that well, but the good thing is it gets our jobs out to a lot of people. And so what happens is they come and hit that apply button, and it asks for like a resume. But we don't even look at that resume. Typically what we do is you can now ask questions, and we say, hey, one of the top questions, the only question we have is, did you go to our website and apply there? Because that is where our form application lives, and that's the important part. And so they go to our website, and I would say about 40% of people never go and fill that out. They send an application in, and sometimes it's just a matter of phone number and email. And we're like, you're gonna not enough effort in to actually go fill out the application. Then we're not even going to interview you. Now, if we see someone in there that looks promising, and we're like, well, maybe they just missed that, we will send them the application and say, hey, here is our actual application. Please fill this out, and then we can talk. And so it's interesting though, because the 3 people I have sent that to in the past couple weeks haven't even gone and filled that out. So kind of interesting that to see kind of the trickle down aspect of, I'm not sure if these people are applying hundreds of places and just clicking the button and never intending to actually fill out an application or what. But so we have an application that's built in Airtable, and the reason for that is we can do a lot of different things with the data on the back end. And we ask a fair number of questions. I'm actually going to pull it up here. It's going to take me a quick second here to pull this up. All right, so here is our application. So we are asking for obviously their name, their email address, all the contact information. And we start asking questions here. What are your hobbies? What do you want to do in 2 years? Because we want to get more of a feel for who they are. What are they passionate about? Because obviously they're saying, hey, I'm passionate about spraying pesticides and, partying on the weekends. That's probably not a good fit, because that means that they're not going to get our why of why we exist. And it also means that they're not going to be very good to go on Monday morning when we need them to work. Next one is, do you have any agricultural experience? So this is always important for us to know if they have any background with that. We ask about personal development, if they've done their own personal development. We ask for a couple personality tests. So we use 2 right now. We ask for the Enneagram personality, and then we also ask for a DISC personality. And one of the things is we don't, on the DISC, we do give them a link for a free DISC personality, but the Enneagram, we say, we just want you to fill it out. And so they have to go find their own and figure it out. And again, part of this is farming is not, it's not a super easy job. And so you have to have a certain level of mental competence to, and being able to figure problem solving, I guess is what I'm saying there. And so that's why we ask them these open-ended questions, which we cause them to go do these other things. And so that's why we do it that way. Then we ask them if they feel the tests are accurate. And people will say, well, this part wasn't, or this part was. We do ask philosophy on life, if they have any managerial experience, farming or not, share that there, and then ask why they're the best candidate for the job. And then we do ask for a resume or CV, and then pay rate they're requesting. So we recently had someone submit an application, and they were asking for a pay rate that was just completely outside of our availability of what we can pay. And so we were like, you know what, that's just not going to be a good fit. There's some other things in their application too, which made us take second pause. And so that was an easy no for us. So, so that's kind of the first stage, is this application. Then after this application, typically we'll review it. We'll look at it, my wife and myself and our farm manager. And then after that, we'll get them in for a 15-minute, meet you interview. And what we do in this is we go ahead and just walk around the farm, talk to them a little bit, get a little bit of information about who they are, what they're doing, what they plan to do with their life, and see if they feel like a good fit too. And so sometimes you'll just get that vibe that this person's just not for us. And the other thing we're testing too is to see how they do around our kids, because obviously we have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and now a newborn, and the kids are always running around the farm. And as a farm worker, you need to be able to interact with them. And so we want to make sure that they're going to be a good fit for that as well. So that's the first stage. And then the second stage is the in-person interview. And then if we find out they do well there, then we'll move them into a working interview. So this is typically a 2 to 4 hour shift. They come in, work with us. Part of the time they're going to work with me. And then part of the time, they're just going to work with the team. And that's incredibly intentional because we want to make sure that they can take direction from the team. And they aren't going to say, well, why are we doing it this way? Or this is stupid. Or, well, I'm only here because X. Or I'm going to get another job in 3 months. I just need a filler. And, a lot of those things would disqualify you. If you're only here for a few months, that's not a good fit for us typically. If you aren't listening to the team or bad-mouthing people or saying other things that we're like, oh, this is kind of little red flags, then we're probably going to move you along. But if that goes well, that interview goes well, then we'll go ahead and send them a offer letter, and that's going to contain obviously the different benefits we offer, the pay rate, what promotion looks like, what that and kind of like what a job here would look like. And so that's kind of the 4-step process that we'll go through for hiring people. I know some people have longer. Some of the things there too is we want to make sure they can afford to work for us. This is something Dave Ramsey talks about a lot. Is like, hey, can the people, they make enough money to work for you? And or are they going to be really challenged by making that kind of money? And so that's definitely something we want to know, because if they're going to get stressed out because we can't advance their pay rate as fast as they want, then that's probably not going to be a good fit as well. All right, so what do we offer for people working for us? Right now, this is obviously can change. Right now, we're offering a relatively good range of pay. So if you've got any experience, you're working starting in the mid-teens. For wage. Some of our high school kids, we're going to start off at lower than that, a little bit lower than that, because again, that's a very seasonal job. Then we also offer profit sharing. So we do offer a profit share program, and we kind of tell people that, look, first year, this is obviously our first startup year, there's not going to be a ton of profit, but we do envision seeing as the farm scales beyond that, there being good profit coming from the business. So it's really rewarding those who are going to stay with us for the long term. A flexible schedule. So we offer very flexible schedule. We have people that come in early, do their own thing. Then we have people that you can stay late. So we have that. And, some people have Thursdays off. Some people they work Saturdays. Some people get off at noon. So we really try to work with people on that and work around their schedules. And we obviously have a farmer's corner in the cooler, which is where all the seconds are. And so people get the access to that. And they also get a 15% discount on our farm store. So we obviously bring in all our products, but we have a lot of other products as well: milk, eggs, elderberry products, honey. So we have a full aspect there, and they do get a significant discount on those products as well. So those are the kind of the 4 areas that we hire for, and we kind of the benefits we have. We're always open to adding new things. I know my friend Jackson is in our small farm university. We've had some good conversations in there about all of this. And he said, hey, I know a farmer who offers drinks and snacks. And I'm like, that's a great idea. That's something we probably should be offering too as well, especially in the heat of the summer. Being able to come back in there and just open up a cooler and grab a cool drink is going to be super helpful for them to get through the day and keep that morale up. So let's kind of move in a little bit here to we've talked about, the challenges. We know there's challenges out there. We've talked about who we hire, how we hire, kind of the process, kind of the hiring package we offer. And let's talk a little bit about H2A. I know that's something definitely works for a lot of farms. It can be incredibly valuable and profitable aspect of the farm. And so let's kind of talk about that. And I think the big thing that's talked about is there's people out there that say, well, American only. Unfortunately, there's a lot of times which is very hard to get labor. And we've talked about that, and I think that's just known. And we are right now hiring just local. We would like to continue that. But if it comes down to it, then we may end up having to move to H2A. And let's talk about the advantages there and what the program is. So H2A is a government agricultural program that brings in workers from other countries to work in the U.S. And it's hugely common in the dairy industry and the commercial veg industry on the West Coast. And these guys are well paid, and they're great at what they do. And they actually are the backbone of a lot of the food you eat, unfortunately. I'm not saying unfortunately because I don't want them here. I'm saying unfortunately because obviously it'd be great if all our food was produced locally by our communities, but it's not. It's still produced in massive areas in California and in New Mexico and that sort of thing. So the thing about H2A is they tend to work really, really hard. They're great workers. They don't complain about the heat. The heat doesn't really bother them. They want 50 to 60 hours a week because they're here to work. They're not. Their families are typically back in Mexico or Guatemala or Jamaica or wherever they're coming from, and they're coming here to work. So they want those hours. They typically don't get sick very often, so they're here to work. And they work and they get stuff done. And they're professional farmers, so they're trained on what to do with these different things, and they just move through it and get stuff done. And so, a lot of people say they work circles around, even I would say, yeah, they'd work circles around me, just the amount of stuff they can get done. It is expensive, though. It's not a cheap program. That's why a lot of people don't do it. First, you have to provide housing, and that's highly regulated. So the state will come in and inspect this, you have to follow certain protocols and certain levels of different things. You got to offer all that. It is expensive before you get them on your farm too. So you have to fill out a bunch of paperwork, and typically you work through a organization to bring them in. So you're not going to bring them in yourself, but you're going to actually work through a company that does all that and tracks that and helps get them in. So between 1 and 6 guys, it will cost around $7,000 to bring them in. Okay, that's before you have to offer the housing and then the prevailing wage on top of that. And so with prevailing wage is right now in Ohio, it's $15.31. I was just talking to someone in Pennsylvania. It's $14.15 right now. So it varies by state and varies by year. It's kind of what's set, prevailing wage. But again, these guys are coming in. They're going to stay on the farm. They're going to work, and get stuff done. And so if you do end up scaling up, these are the kinds of things that you need to work at and think about, because these guys are really effective. Now, they're not going to stay here for a couple weeks, so you've got to hire them for the entire season. That's typically, I think, like a 6 to 9 month season. Can you share them with other farmers? That's definitely something we want to get onto the podcast, as someone that can talk about the H2A program in more detail. There frequently is a language barrier, so you probably need to know Spanish or the country of origin language. And the other thing you can do is you can say, hey, I need one person that is bilingual, and they can translate to other people that you bring in. So if you're bringing in 3, 2 can only speak their native language, one person needs to be able to talk to them. And again, you can kind of show them what needs to be done, and learning a second language is always a great skill to have. So that is great as well. So let's kind of wrap this all up, folks. First, we kind of talked about right now why you want to add more labor to your farm, why you want to have people on your farm. And again, it's so when you're sick or need a break, it's so you can leverage the power of a team, and so you can create community around your farm. There is a massive challenge right now. I mean, again, there's some people that say, so let's put it this way. Out of the dozens of comments we got on the Facebook posts, I think 3 people said, hey, we've got plenty of labor, we're turning people away. Everyone else was saying it's really challenging, and we're thinking of moving to H2A. Or we're closing our farm, or making it smaller, or shutting things down, or doing this, that, and the other. The job market is changing. I think that's a positive thing. Obviously, the goal is that everyone's making a living wage and making good money. And so the fact that that is happening, that the prices are changing, is great. But the problem is we're also seeing massive inflation right now. A 2x4 costs $12. Steel has doubled. Our seeds have gone up 20% or so. And so, yeah, unfortunately, we're just seeing everything go up. Now, the challenge is to make sure that you are telling your customers this, that they are understanding why you have to charge more, because you're already making razor thin margins, and with the cost of everything doubling and tripling, you need to go up with the cost of your products. There is people out there. There's great people out there. We have a fabulous team right now. It's small. We're all kind of stretched thin, but we have a fabulous team. And so there are good people out there. Just how do you get them onto your farm is the challenge. And so we talked about our hiring process. We talked about, first Facebook advertisements, Craigslist, move them to our online form, which lives on a webinar page on our website. So anyone at any point can see that, make an application. We're always constantly open door policy with hiring. If we find the right people, we'll add them to our team. And then we're doing the interviews, on-farm interview, working interview, and before we hire them. And then what we're offering, again, the good wage, profit sharing, farmer's corner, flexible schedule. And, we wrap this up talking about the H2A. Is that a good option for you? Would it make sense for you? And again, if you're a very quarter acre micro farm and you're just looking for a little bit of help, you probably need to find one of those moms or dads, which, have kids in school and can come in for 4 or 5 hours at a time. So that is definitely something which, think about who you're hiring and what you're looking for there. So think about that. If you guys have questions, comments, thoughts about this, would love your feedback. I know the posts in Facebook got highly competitive. People accused me of just taking cheap political shots. And I was like, no, this is a changing workforce. This is a massive problem that farmers face and something we need to be talking about, addressing, and understanding. And I'll be the first to admit that I don't have all the answers. And I'm glad that we've got awesome people in our groups that share their thoughts and, help me kind of see where they're coming from and what's going on out there. So grateful for that. But yeah, feel free to drop comments and questions in the group or email me directly. Email is michael@growingfarmers.com. That gets right to me. So thanks a lot for listening. Hope you are having a great rest of the season. And send us your tips for how you've built an amazing team or why you like to farm alone. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks for listening. Hey, thriving farmers, have you checked us out on YouTube lately? We have a bunch of new content there, including a few rants by me. I want to tell you, you don't want to miss them. I actually go rant about, some of the problems I see in our space and some of the challenges I see farmers facing. So go check that out. We've got instructional videos over there as well. Talk about setting up our new farm here in Ohio and all the steps we're going to do that, as well as just tutorials and tips on best practices for all sorts of things on the farm. So go ahead, check over at Growing Farmers on YouTube and see the new content we put together for you. So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.